We begin this evening with the very latest from the Southeast Clarendon by-election. Counting is now underway, and it's no surprise the governing Jamaica Labour Party candidate Pernell Charles Jr. is leading his independent opponent Derek Lambert. Our reporter Dwayne Anderson is in the constituency and now joins us live. Dwayne?
Good evening, Janela, good evening, Erman, and good evening to our viewers on television, Jamaica. So let me just get right to it. The very latest we have, the display board behind me is reflecting the electronic scores of the ballots as they are counted. So the very latest we have is 92% of the votes have been counted, and Pernell Charles Jr. has well over 5,000 votes, pretty close to 6,000. So he's nearly there, he's nearly home. We will be speaking with Pernell Charles Jr. in a short time, but I have with me the Director of Elections, Glasspool Brown. He'll be joining me shortly. Mr. Brown, first of all, what can you tell us about today's voting process?
Good night. It went fairly well for us. All our system work. The turnout was a bit low. At the end of the day, we are projecting about 18.3%.
18.3%. The 135 polling stations you set up, would you have, expected that sort of turnout? And then was it necessary that you put out so many polling stations?
No, we don't have a choice. In our, it is required that we put out 135 polling stations, but we had hope that the turnout would have been better. But at the end of the day, it came out to 18.3%.
Any reports of disturbances?
No, there wasn't any major issue. There's one issue that we had to deal with. The election center dealt with it this afternoon. We issued a press release. It pertains to a number of individuals who were going around as observers, and only the cafe people were certified by the Electoral Commission as observers. That was the only major issue we had, and we dealt with it at the Electoral Election Center.
Thank you, Glasspool Brown, Director of Elections. I'll also be speaking with Pernell Charles Jr. because he's almost home. But before I do that, let me throw to a rap I did, a story I did earlier today when I was making my rounds in the constituency. At midday, just 8% of the near 41,000 registered voters had cast a ballot. By 3 p.m., it was just 15%, or around 6,000. But the low voter turnout did not bother the JLP leadership. They say their objectives in this by-election were geared at future events.
We expected that because it's a by-election and the main opposition party is not running. But our primary purpose was to test the readiness of the machinery of the Jamaica Labour Party. The leader clearly said that early in the campaign. And when we say test the readiness, it means the full organization. How do you identify where your voters are, who needs vehicles? How do you get enough vehicles into the situation? How do you treat the community issues? How we train our workers? How we deal with the logistics of providing lunch for everybody?
Elections are always a good thing for a political organization, and my view is that we should always take the opportunity to contest elections. And even though we don't have an opponent in a full sense, we are still treating it as if it were a competitive contest.
The JLP supporters brought the day's excitement, especially in the party's stronghold of Rocky Point and Portland Cottage.
We have voted for my children them, and we don't want any violence. We just want a peaceful and normal election. And this man, we have voted for this man because this man we could get water. We never have no water in our pipe and no water running like a wow. If we never used to wash out, and now we are flash out. So, may I tell you really truth, this man is the man.
But in the independent camp, trouble brewed. Derek Lambert and his team said they were being undermined.
And what we're realizing, and a lot of the complaints, is that there are people going around who are not JLP that are telling the people not to go out and vote. And we're fighting not just the JLP, we're also fighting another faction. And we won't call any names. I think you can discern that on your own. So this is our biggest fight.
A resident who said he's a PNP supporter said he voted for Derek Lambert.
We vote for independent. Because I'm not a Labourite. Yeah.
So you feel like you're going to waste your vote today?
Well, Somebody have to win. But Labour right going to win this election here. Because this is not a real election. This is a man we are coming. So this is not a real election. We don't call this election.
135 polling stations were opened across the constituency for the by-election. Reports of disturbances at or around the polling stations were minimal. We captured the moment when officers removed a man from a polling station in Mitchelltown. He was hurling threats at voters. Most of the schools in the constituency were used as polling stations, meaning students had the day off, with the exception of students at the Portland Cottage Primary School. Again, so the results as they come in, the very latest, 97% of the boxes have been counted, 6,300 votes for Pernell Charles Jr. of the JLP. He is home, just about 2% left, so we'll invite him in for an interview now. Mr. Pernell Charles Jr., you've been on the ground, you're just about home. 6,300, is that a sufficient enough mandate to go about the people's business now?
Listen, I'm grateful for every vote, every single vote that we've received. I think that in the circumstances, to have that many persons extend themselves, despite what was on the road, that, you know, there's no major political opponent, so there's no need to vote, despite the enormous effort that was made to go around the constituency and tell persons, you know, you don't need to vote. I think that it is beyond reasonable, and I am grateful. I'm thankful to every voter, to all the supporters, to the Prime Minister and the team from across the country, to my family and friends and colleagues, especially the supporters who are not attached to the Labour Party. Those men and women who came to me and whispered and said, listen, you know, I'm not a Labourite, but I want to give you a chance, because they felt that there was a message that they could believe in and someone that they wanted to give an opportunity to prove that the politics can be done in a different way.
If whispers are to be believed, you could very well have a very short time as Member of Parliament until the next general election. What should the people of South East Clarendon use to judge you?
Well, thankfully I don't listen to whispers. I listen to what is going to be in writing or told to me by the relevant authority. But you're correct, you always have to be prepared. And so the residents and constituents of South East Clarendon can expect that the work will start right now. We're going to continue the engagement. We're going to continue to reach them, to go to their house, church, school, meet with them, listen to them, and present proposals, discuss, debate, deliberate on how we can work together in partnership to make this the best space that it can be. Healthy, productive citizens in a safe and secure space.
Thank you so much, Pernell Charles Jr., the likely winner, the winner of tonight's by-election. Just over 97% of the votes have been counted. Before the end of this newscast, I will give you 100%, 97%, that's over 6,300 votes. But as soon as I get the rest of the votes, I'll be sure to share it with you. It's back to you guys, Herman.
All right, thank you, Duane. Our reporter Duane there in Southeast Clarendon. Just to tell you again, low voter turnout, 18.3%, 6,529 votes to Pernell Charles Jr., 701 to Mr. Derek Lambert.